Hey, babe, juice me. This is what happens when you get old, folks. You pour cranberry juice all over yourself. But we gotta hit it because this is fun. Ready? We're getting stoked for you guys. Let's go, we're live. Get it down. Alright. You may be asking why the cranberry juice. Well, when you're in your 20s, you probably drink a lot. Not everyone drinks a lot. When you're old, why can't you drink a lot?
Because you ruined your system when you were in your 20s?
There's our first tip of the day, when that's not even on our official 10.
Don't ruin your lives. Tip number 1.
Okay, so we're happy to bring this video to you. Here we go. The top 10 tips for what we recommend in your 20s. Because our 20s was a while ago, so now we're looking back in time. So we're not like in our 20s making this up. This is like us truly reflecting. Took some time to actually come up with what we thought was valuable.
Tried and true. I'm not that far out of my 20s, just so you know. He's a little bit farther out of his 20s. But you know what? We learned some things. We saw some things, we learned some things, and we want to share those things with you today. So we're going to give you the top 10 tips for living in your 20s aligned with Jesus.
That's right. And for this video, basically on YouTube, you guys are seeing kind of the highlights. But if you want to hear the background stories, you'll have to listen to the audio podcast version, where we do feel there's really valuable information in that. All right, here we go. Very practical, of course, budgeting and money, right? So you definitely want to learn how to budget in your 20s, if not done by your teens, honestly. Why do you want to budget? Because it's going to affect everything you do. Now, maybe you're like, oh, I'm 21, I live with my parents, or I'm in college, I don't really have a job. You should still learn how to budget. Get these tips down, so it becomes like routine once you have a real income and you have real big expenses like a house and all the bills that go with it.
Even though I didn't have a steady income throughout college, I mean, I was doing work study and things like that, and had some summer jobs, but it wasn't like a career, obviously, because I was still in school. I wish I would have budgeted, saved, and invested money, because I still had a little bit of income. And if I would have gained those principal habits, that would have helped me beyond college. Because once I got out into the real world, I was frugal. I wasn't just throwing my money away, but I still didn't have a budget to like help me make target goals and attainable goals, and to really know how to use my money well. Because again, investing was something that I didn't even think about. So maybe I wasn't spending my money crazily, but I wasn't saving well, and I wasn't investing it.
Right. So where can you learn budgeting if you don't know? I mean, definitely we recommend Dave Ramsey. Check out his website. They have great stuff over there. They have calculators, like financial calculators, where you can see like if you save now, how much this will turn into if you invest it. And that leads me to the second part of budgeting is investing. Definitely get an IRA going right away. Usually for young people, typically a Roth IRA is the way to go. And then mutual funds as well if you have money on top of that. I did start out young, and I have some friends that started out young. So we had some of the knowledge that maybe she didn't. And let me tell you, folks, I have zero regrets. So it's worked out well investing, and we're still trying to build that portfolio. But getting a jump at a young age, you'll see if you look at those calculators, you guys have more opportunity to make more money than anybody else because of your youth. The time is really something investing. If you start later, like 35, 40, even later, you have to work like triple, as hard just to get the same kind of money to return. So that's that. And then the last part on budgeting is control, right? So, try to live in your own lifestyle. You might have a friend that makes more money. If they do, don't try to live their lifestyle. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses. And even maybe, if you're disciplined, try to pinch a little bit. We're not saying don't have fun, but discipline goes a long way. When you're in your 20s, you don't have a lot of money. So you want to get money saved up for getting those student loans down or whatever it is, the house, right? So everything you can say no to and be a little bit disciplined really adds up in the end. So you can get this debt thing done early in your life as opposed to other people who do it for like 25 years.
Right. And I just want to say, like, from my personal experience, because I didn't save, because I wasn't paying off that student loan debt, because I accumulated debt, like, I didn't get to live the 20s in the way that I wish I would have been able to. And I see other people who've been able to live their 20s, right? So it's just like, the 20s were just like, okay, moving back in the house with mom and dad. Okay, where am I going to find the next job? How am I going to blah, 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 instead of having those goals and making sure that I was paying off that debt fast. So I feel like I missed out a lot on the 20s because of my debt. So if you can avoid debt, go to a community college instead. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually becoming a new thing. A lot of teens are doing that right now. And I would say if you're going to a university, know that you're going into that career pretty confidently, so that way you can make up that deficit.
Absolutely. Most colleges, if you don't know, your first 2 years, you're just doing gen eds anyways. So community college, you can save yourself literally 30, 40, 50 grand in those first 2 years just by going to community college. I know you want to be in the college scene. Some of you want to go off. I get it. I totally get the feeling. And it's tough when you're young because you're just like, no, I'm going. That's how I was. But yeah, if you can survive that, wow, you'll come out at 22, 23, whatever it'll be, you'll be so ahead of so many people who have just massive college debt. Now, if you can get scholarships and stuff, that's great. And maybe for some of you, you're going to have to go to a school, a university right away. But that's pretty rare where you really need to go there straight away.
Yeah, so I would just say be smart about your money. Ask for financial advisors' help and advice, especially try to find people who do not just say that it's the norm to get loans and it's the norm to get into debt. They're not paying your bills, you are. But pray about it, honestly. Pray about the best way to use your money, and debt is not the best way to use money.
Especially credit cards, they're the worst, the worst kind of interest you can pay. Yeah, and even now in our life, we don't have everything in our house isn't quite paid off and such. We still have to budget and pray about what we're going to use our money on. Now, we're not saying live on noodles and rice. Maybe there's periods in your life where you're doing that, you're transitioning between things, but generally you don't have to live like that. It just means hey, take 10%, 15% and start putting that away in investments and such, and start building, equity for your life. But, yeah, definitely pray Lord, do you think I should go on this Europe trip right now? He'll tell you, should you go or not? Maybe he's no, I want to save the money. Or maybe there's other reasons he'll say yes or no. But just things like that is what we pray about all the time. Should we do this with our money? How can we glorify you with this money that you gave to us, basically?
Mm-hmm. Right. And my final point is, yes, discipline has to do with saying no to certain things, but ultimately, what is your yes? Is your yes to have financial freedom? Is your yes to have a financial security? Is your yes to be able to retire by the age of 60 or 65 or even earlier so you don't have to work till your deathbed? Find your yes, and then it'll be easier to say no to the Starbucks coffee every single day.
Well said.
So it's getting sweaty in here, so we're going to keep rolling with number 5, social media.
Ooh, big topic, social media. They don't really train you in school for this, do they? Anyhow, what we want to say here real quick is that social media, when you're in your 20s, and it's not just your 20s, emotions are still running high. Myself, my friends, a lot of us posted something on social media at one point, even if literally I was trying to be good about it. I didn't take enough time to step back and be what's this going to look like once it's actually out there in the real world? What's this going to look like in a year from now? Someone could literally take that wrong if I don't word it carefully. Not saying you need to adhere to everyone's different things, but you need to think about it. How's it going to affect them? Are you clear? Is your message clear? Do you really want this to be your message? Because so many people have been burned by that. Obviously, nowadays employers look at what's their social media page like? So you got to watch out for that. But you want to be professional, but more than anything, you want to be a Christian. And I would just say, be patient before you post on social media.
Yeah, I think we don't need to say anything else about that. Be Christ-like in your real life, on your online life. Be Christ-like everywhere. And with that, whatever our actions are, going on to number 6, to be Christ-like, we have to discern. We have to build a prayer life so we know how to make the right choices to build the habit or virtues. We have to know Christ before we can be Christ-like. So we have to develop a prayer life that's consistent, that is not based just on emotions, right? Many of you go to these youth conferences and you're used to, maybe you go to Christian college and you have these great groups of friends, and then you get out of college. How do you maintain a prayer life, a relationship with Christ when you don't have all the high running emotions and good feelings? It takes work, and it's hard, and it takes consistency, just like a healthy exercise routine. Our bodies are made for consistency. That's how we keep our bodies healthy, is by consistently moving them. Same with our spiritual life. By consistent prayer and diving into scripture daily, that's how we become Christ-like.
Yeah, definitely. Can you have a relationship with Jesus when the worship music's gone and the crowd is gone, right? Yeah, and we're saying pray. That's where you start praying, right? And then you can move to a level of discernment, which is kind of what we've been mentioned throughout this stuff. How do I, pick the career? What do I do with my finances? What woman do I choose, or man for you, or whatever? So you want to move from a prayer relationship where you're definitely talking to God every day. Sometimes that comes in the form of prayers like a rosary, or you're praying out of scripture, depending on your faith. But yeah, and then it moves to more of a contemplative place where it's not so much wordiness, right? God, I need this. God, you telling him your whole day. He loves to hear that. He is a father and child. Think of that, right? But eventually you move into those higher stages of prayer. And that's where you start to listen more, and you just actually are filled by the Spirit. And you can grow there so much more than all the wordiness, at least all the wordiness that I can create in my prayers. So you want to get to that point and you start to discern quietly. And discernment takes a long time, you know. It takes a long time to develop. Look at books, though. Look at your, talk to your pastor or priest, etc. How do I learn to hear God? There's many good podcasts out there. This is essential. This might almost be my number one. How can you learn to hear God? This is like everything for me. Literally, guys, it took me a while, and really in my 20s, that's where I developed my discernment life. I just, I make mistakes, but I have really very few regrets. On every time that I listen to God, I don't have regrets. Even though things got hard, there was people who died for Christ, right? Martyrs, but they probably prayed, Lord, should I go in there? And God knew they'd die, but he said, go in there. Like you'd want to do otherwise, right? No, God, I'm just going to go my own way, even though I get to have some brownies, just like whatever it is, or, live and not be martyred. Like that kind of tests where your heart is. Are you really willing to follow God? No, you're not going to go on this date. I know she's available. She seems like she's a good Christian, but I'm telling you no, son. I'm telling you no. Are you going to listen to me? Right? Those really test you, but you start to do that and he'll never fail to show up, right? He'll guide you and woof. I mean, his way is better than our way.
Right. And he wants greater happiness for you than you even want for yourself. We all want happiness. We all desire it, and we try to get it in different ways. But he knows what's going to make us happy. So when we learn how to listen to him, we're never going to be, even if it's hard, we're never going to be disappointed. It's always going to lead to our best. And I can just affirm, too, attest that the times that I listened to God in careers, finances, relationships, anything, I was much happier and at peace. That restlessness was gone. And that's the joy that the Lord wants to give us. And again, it's not easy. There might be some suffering with that.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't look like the world. Because a lot of my friends who weren't Christian so much, they'd be like, what are you doing, man? Because sometimes I'd like take obvious or routes that were not obvious, So like, just do this, dude. It's right there. Just take this job. It's more money. I literally was offered jobs that paid more money. And the Lord said no. And I turned them down. Thankfully I did. In time, I saw why. It's just like, so you gotta stick with Jesus, baby. So there's some tips to get you started on old YouTube, but we got some juicers coming for you. What do they got to do to hear the rest?
They got to go anywhere you can find a podcast. Spotify, iTunes, you name it. Google Podcast.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
I'm listening to an audio podcast.
Ciao, ciao.
I'll probably use iTunes.
I like Spotify. Ciao, ciao.
Well, it's right on my phone. That's why I listen to it there.
I don't have an iPhone because I'm an Android.
Oh, man, I just can't wait to hear the rest of those tips.
They are so great.
I probably should shut this off and get my audio podcast going right now. It's on 6 different platforms.
6 different platforms. That's almost how many tips are left.
I know, but the only problem is they don't get to see our beautiful faces.
These ones?
But like we said, sometimes you gotta suffer for the good.
Because Jesus wants your ultimate happiness.
Hey, do you know where my headphones are? I'm gonna go listen to my podcast.
Okay, no, but I can help you find yours while I find mine.
Oh, sweet.
So I can listen to the podcast.